Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. My name is One of One, but you can call me Seven, and we're now deep in the mines. Fellas. Today, the plan is simple. Get Alice Kuonji to like us. That's really the biggest thing. My man has been toiling away, working so hard, trying to come up with so many different ways to figure out, like, he's just been racking his country bumpkin brain to try and wrap his head around how he's going to do this, because this is sort of a life or death situation for him, and yet he's so blasé about it, nonchalant, as it were, and I love it, because his interactions with Aoko have only gotten more entertaining as a result. So now, after seeing, well, he didn't watch Alice sleep, he read next to her. I don't know, I don't think it was weird. Okay, I don't know, you guys tell me what you think, but now that that's happened, last day of exams are over, winter break has started, he's gotta talk to her. This is the last day that Aoko's protection ends too, so see what happens. The road home was no different than yesterday, like he was reliving yet another day striding up that hill. Yet today, there was a fierce determination in his steps. Today was his last chance, and he wanted nothing more than to talk to the girl. He did not care if she was cruel to him or ignored him, nor whether Aoko was being truthful when she said that she could trap him in a mirror land or something like that. All he really cared about was having the chance to speak with her face to face. But nothing is ever that simple. To tell the truth, what he found upon finally entering the mansion was not wholly unexpected. She sure sleeps a lot. Dang it, dude. The deja vu he was experiencing made him dizzy. Faced with an exact reenactment of the previous day, he could not help but blurt out what he was thinking. Alice was sleeping by the fireplace, just as she had done yesterday. The way her legs draped to one side resembled those of a princess in a children's book. She looked more comfortable than she had the day before. Miraculously, he had a rare flash of insight that enabled him to read the situation more clearly. What could Tobimaru be doing at school on his own? Upon glancing back at the entrance, he made his decision, took a deep breath, and rolled up his sleeves. If today was a reenactment of yesterday, then he supposed he would play along with that idea. Sojiro removed his shoes and headed for the kitchen. He was off to prepare another ill-fated pot of tea. Since she was angry about him using her precious fauchon, this time he turned to Jackson's fruit and herb brew. Sadly, this was about as much as Sojiro could manage to amend his behavior. He had failed to realize that it was not the brand of tea that had landed him in hot water, but rather his incorrect brewing method. Oh, but don't you guys care that he's trying? He's being so earnest, come on! After filling the pot with tea, he carried it back to the foyer. His breath was visible in the cold air as he sat himself down by the fireplace. Damn, it's that cold inside. Sojiro took a sip of the fruity tea prepared for himself and pulled his textbook from his bag. Exams were over now, but he had been instructed to take extra classes for the subjects from day one of school. Quite inevitable. The foyer was warmer than outside, but still far from comfortable. It was enough to make anyone yearn for some source of warmth. Sojiro dove into his electronics textbook in the winter-chilled hall. The class was not very popular, which is why it had been recommended to him in the first place. The fact that everyone who took it started on equal footing made it more appealing to him than other classes. Aozaki was right. He downed the rest of the tea, having no appreciation for its flavor, and refilled his cup. The tea was still warm since the ceramic teapot had excellent heat retention. I can't seem to remember anything that's written down. He vaguely recalled their conversation as his eyes advanced across the page. The lack of lighting in the foyer was forcing him to rely on illumination from the skylight. Okay, so now we're doing the thing. It's the same thing as before. Covered in ash, or perhaps the quiet forgotten world of a faded fairy tale. Hidden away from the sun. And now, afternoon has turned into evening. The sun is setting, we've got dusk. The minutes pass slowly for some time until the sound of a textbook slamming shut brought the room back to reality. Placed his cup on the tray, leaving Alice sitting in front of her on the floor. Time to go to work, he said unceremoniously. He spoke as if to convince himself that he had no other choice as he prepared to leave the sleepy foyer behind. But before he could, a sound behind him stopped him in his tracks. He turned around with his bag under his arm and tray in his hands. So as not to cause even a ripple in her teacup, he greeted her. Yeah. Hey, in a light, easygoing manner. She remained seated next to the fireplace like a black-eyed, sleeping beauty. Her face was as still as a statue, almost no different than it had been in slumber. He ignored what Aoko said, which is that she didn't like that he had been watching her sleep. Looking at Alice now, he realized just how different she and Aoko really were. Aoko communicated her feelings openly, even if he never could quite tell where they came from. Her trademark expression of irritation would keep him guessing as to the reason she was angry, but to her credit, her emotional state was always clear. Alice, on the other hand, was completely unreadable. She might be angry, or then again sad. He could not tell either way. What do you think you're doing? Her question gave him a sinking feeling in the pit of his stomach. He could not decide whether it was animosity or perplexity that he heard in her voice. If the former, this was likely to turn into a replay of their interaction from the other night. An image of the shattered bottle sprang to his mind. Sojiro knew his response would be extremely important. And after struggling for a few moments, he finally worked up the courage to say something. Just not the correct thing, unfortunately. Right, about that. It'll take a while to explain, so let me just have a seat first. He had no idea what the correct approach would be, so he simply did whatever came into his mind instead. She gave him no response. Her face said that she detested his presence, but he plowed ahead regardless. Sojiro took a seat and set down the tray once more. Their eyes met. Her inscrutable gaze was enough to turn most people away, but the target of her animosity appeared not to notice it at all. Look at him! Look at this dummy! Oh my god! Yes? I guess I should have done this a long time ago, but I've been wanting to talk to you about something, Alice. Despite having suggested that it would take time to explain, he managed to sum things up succinctly. Me? Not Aoko? Well, I have lots to talk to Aozaki about. In fact, I think all three of us should sit down at some point. Alice found herself out of kilter, unable to read his true intentions. This is what happens every single time. Sojiro continued on, failing to notice her bewilderment. Aozaki said you two rarely speak to each other. I feel bad if that's because of me, but I'd feel even worse if it isn't. It's sad that we live together but never talk. Each word he spoke was heavy with emotion. Oh, let's go! My man's going for the emotional appeal to a girl who seemingly doesn't feel or express emotion at all. This is sick. He's based. Alice remained utterly unable to discern this boy's intentions. All she could parse was that there was something he wanted from her. But what could that be? What she found even stranger was that he was not speaking to her from a place of fear. Aren't you afraid of me? No. I don't know enough about you to be scared of you, to tell the truth. Her gleaming eyes looked like they were made of polished quartz. His response had not been what she expected. Again, this guy's always throwing people off their game. He spoke with pure honesty and unfettered truth. Such boldness, however, did not actually upset her. Their conversation ground to a halt. If you could even call it a conversation in the first place. Alice grew tense, as if displeased by the strangely comfortable moment of silence between them. Strangely comfortable, Sojiro endured her cold stare, showing no sign of flinching. Talk. You said you wanted to talk to me. So, be my guest, whatever topic you like. Boys? Girls? We're in. We're in. This is it. You get your foot in the door, you bust that shit open. It was more challenge than an invitation. He had neither a topic on hand, nor were they intimate enough to strike up a casual conversation. Nonetheless, her challenge hung in the air, waiting for a response. Well, what about that bird? The blue one over there. I see it around now and then. Is it your pet? Or is it one of those, what are they called? Ploys. A magical familiar? Her eyes let slip for a moment a very natural response. It was annoyance, such as that which one might feel toward a troublemaker. Yes, it's a ploy, but the stupid bird isn't mine. It's lived here longer than I have, and I'm afraid I don't know much about it. You mean, it just decided to live here of its own free will? Of course not. I would never allow such a thing. Robin's useless, but I inherited it from my mother. As such, I permit it to continue living here, despite its constant failures and shortcomings. I see. That's a relief. Here I was thinking I'm the only useless one in the house. Laugh! The joke! The joke! Laugh at the joke! Joke! She turned away in silence to avoid looking at his hapless grin. Thus began Sojiro's very lengthy monologue. It started with his part-time job, then moved on to school. Next came the amusement park and random gossip around town, and last, the subject of rent. He spent all of 20 whole minutes on mindless, uninterrupted small talk with no response, as far as I can tell. Then he ran out of things to say and finally stopped. Sorry, I'm on the clock soon, so I should get going. And that was that. After finally getting his long-awaited chance to talk to her, he realized he had no exit plan in place. So he returned the tray to the kitchen, placed his bag in the foyer, and headed for the door. She had never seen the boy so candid, which is why, overcome with surprise, she found herself calling out to him. Wait, she had no reason to do so. And yet she called out anyway. Hmm? Yes? It's just... I saw the pot you used today. Teach him! Teach him! Teach him! Teach him how to make tea! Do it, Alice! Please! Fulfill my dreams! Make my night! Oh, right. I wasn't going to make the same mistake as yesterday, but I guess I'm the only one who drank any today, so... Well, that pot is normally used for coffee, so you shouldn't put tea leaves in it. Sojiro's eyes grew wide with shock. Now he remembered that there had been all sorts of cups and teapots in the cupboard, each one specially designed for a different type of tea. Who knew there was so much to brewing tea? I guess a beginner like me shouldn't mess with things he doesn't understand, huh? She let out a vexed sigh. Why didn't you wake me? Either she had not heard what he said, or she had been waiting this whole time for a chance to ask him that. In any case, her question abruptly interrupted his stream of thought. He fell silent with introspection. The thought of waking her had not so much as crossed his mind either that day or the previous one. Tell me, you didn't wake me. Did you expect me to just keep sleeping? Her eyes were filled with animosity. Lies were useless against such an all-piercing gaze. The setting sun transformed the foyer into a battle of life and death. Lies or deceptive answers would not be permitted. Amidst the palpable tension that filled the room, where any move, wrong or otherwise, was likely to get him killed, he felt pain rather than fear. Alice's voice was icy cold, preemptively rejecting any response he was to give. The boy vaguely imagined a newborn chick that had fallen from the nest, struggling to survive on its own. It gasped, hanging on to a thread of hope, yet detesting where that thread hung. Do you really want to know? Alice nodded sharply. Fine, but it's not especially meaningful or anything. I just think it's rude to wake someone who's asleep. I have no time for jokes. That's the truth. I just thought I should let you sleep. I really wanted to talk, but I decided to wait till the next time we saw each other. How sweet of you. That reminds me, Aoko's protection over you ends today, doesn't it? That makes this your last chance to win me over. So have you, or have you not learned your lesson? He had not. He swore to her, agreed to her terms, and gone as far as to sit face to face with her to get to know her. Surely, he thought, this was enough to escape death, and she believed, as a mage, that his naive goodwill and simple-mindedness were all the reasons she needed to execute him. Trivial misunderstandings would only make things worse at this point. What lesson? What am I supposed to have learned? All this magic and magecraft stuff is way over my head. All I know is I've done everything you and Aozaki have asked of me. Then why? Her gaze said what she really wanted to ask. She wanted to know why he did not beg for his life. She knew the answer. She saw the look on his face when he turned to leave without so much as trying to wake her. A look of resignation. What on earth had it meant? What do you expect me to say? I thought if the opportunity didn't present itself, then so be it. When I saw you sleeping again, I didn't know what to do. You're not exactly the easiest people to approach, you and Aozaki, though Aozaki's a little different. Sojiro struggled to find the right words, but said what he was feeling in the moment anyway. He'd seen a sleeping witch of the wood, who clearly needed someone's help, yet sought the help of no one. But here you are trying to approach me anyway, even though the opportunity never presented itself. Oh, but it did. That's why I decided to do things my way today, even if nothing could go right to begin with. You talk as though you always expected me to reject you. Yeah, I guess it's hard to explain. Sojiro glanced at the entrance. He had no reason to. He just felt an urge to do so. I doubt I'm the only one who'd like to see this situation solved. He muttered as if speaking to himself, but it was clearly meant for her to hear. Alice knew full well how poorly he had understood the situation. All of this was one giant misunderstanding on his part. His tiny gesture of goodwill, pitiful and pure, resembled that of someone reaching out to help a dying kitten. For Alice, doing so would be akin to clutching the thorns of a rose. She felt pain in her chest for the first time in quite a while. I still don't want you in the mansion. She addressed the floor at her feet to avoid showing him how she truly felt. If he had, oh wait. They need to stop beating around the goddamn bush. I need to know how these girls are feeling. You don't get to tell me if you know, but I need to know how these girls are feeling about him. It's killing me inside. If he had, he would have seen that her face looked just the way Aoko's had earlier. I'm sure you don't, and I doubt that'll change anytime soon. But that doesn't mean we can't work something out. It's okay if you keep hating me in the meantime. Her gasp of breath was like a response in itself. To suggest she could keep hating him. She had once wished to hear those words so dearly. If only the once. I mean, you're not the only one. That goes for Aozaki too. I don't think she wants me here either. Expecting to feel welcomed would be a big mistake on my part. We're fundamentally different people, and that's never going to change. I just want you to tolerate me. I know it's a lot to ask, but is there a way I could live here without bothering you too much? Thinking that, of course, it was possible. But if it were that easy, none of this would have been necessary in the first place. Alice nodded in agreement. There was no way he could have planned for things to work out this well, but his plan, in fact, had worked, if inadvertently, from the moment the conversation began. You mean, so that I can sleep undisturbed even with you sitting right next to me? Sure, why not? Beaming, Sojiro stood up and left the foyer. Alice did not stop him this time. What are the implications of that? He had a newfound spring in his step as he headed to work, but something gave him a moment's pause. It's not nice to spy on people. He complained aloud to make sure a certain someone heard him. Oh, did he know that? Did he sense that she was? Oh, wait. Oh, what are the implications? What is this dynamic between him and Alice? Oh, I don't know. I can't tell. Oko had been outside and he knew eavesdropping. When did you get home? With a sullen glare, Alice addressed the interloper. Aoko was shivering from head to toe after standing in the cold for so long. She deemed gloves an abomination and refused to wear them except in the most extreme cold. As a result, her slender fingers were pitifully swollen and red. Alice, don't be like that. How did it go? You two were talking for so long. She looked strangely elated as she blew on her hands to warm them. Alice was not fooled at all by Aoko's facade, clear from the ill-tempered look she wore on her face. I never expected you to be so overprotective. But did you do it out of stubbornness or obligation? Oh, please. I was just going with the flow. But seriously, how did it go? You told me you'd resort to force if he made you mad. He was perplexing. I didn't understand him. He surprised me at every turn. I think I like him, but I would never say that. I mean, what? Alice's mood was growing darker and darker the longer she had to look at Aoko's cheerful posturing. It all went back to their dinner together the previous night. After everything that happened in the foyer, Alice was both more suspicious of and intrigued by Sojiro than ever before. She insisted that Aoko let him walk home alone the next day. She then used a concoction to fake her slumber and recreate the same scene as the previous day. That portion of her plan went well, but the rest had veered totally off course. It did not help to know her roommate had savored every moment of it from the other side of the wall either. To make matters worse, Alice was frustrated at herself for letting such trivial matters bother her. She stared at the teacup still sitting on the floor. Her pale finger traced its cold rim. It's as you said. He is harmless. For the time being. She forced a tone of indifference in order to hide her irritation with her apprentice. It was in this moment that Sojiro's fate was decided. That's it? You were talking for what seemed like forever. Relentless Aoko continued her line of questioning. Alice only stared back icily. Aoko, I know you were eavesdropping. She voiced her displeasure at Aoko's behavior in no uncertain terms. Suddenly, Oh geez. The air in the foyer felt cold as ice. They stared at one another, each trying to guess the other's next move. So you did notice. This doesn't change anything about our deal. I hope that's clear. Aoko widened her stance and glared at Alice. I'm a reasonable person, Aoko. It's fine with me if you take 30%. Completely unperturbed by Aoko's warlike posturing, a simple look was all Alice needed to keep her roommate in check. Down from all of it? Ha! Not a chance. Fly too high and you may lose those wings, Aoko. Alice remained calm and dignified, not moving a muscle. It felt like hours passed as the two stared at each other in silence. Aoko was grinding her teeth in frustration. At this rate, their alliance would be in tatters before they even confronted their foe. And worst of all, she knew Alice had the upper hand. Cheapskate. Aoko accepted her defeat with a Fine, you get 60, I get 40. It pained her to settle for less. Alice nodded in satisfaction. Very well. But I'm the head of the house and you're the one who brought him here, so it's your job to collect rent. I see. This sucks. I should have gone to alchemy instead. Then all my problems would be solved. Not really. Not even alchemists are immune to market downturns. Alice spoke with the confidence of someone with first-hand experience of such matters, yet Aoko only nodded absent-mindedly in response. Their bitter fight was over how to split the take of Sojiro's rent now that he was officially oh my god, they're just high school girls. They're just high school girls. They're literally just high school girls. All this is blown out of proportion. In a way, like it's like, oh, we're magic on witches. They're the magecraft to people. I mean, obviously there's some really serious stuff going on and they have some stuff in their past too, but like, they're just high school girls at the end of the day. Like they're arguing over him, a boy living like in their house together with them, an interesting boy, a boy that intrigues them both. How are they going to split his rent? Jesus Christ. Not the most becoming quarrel for a pair of mages. Forcing a boy to live with them and then demanding he pay rent was beyond extortion. It was truly vicious. Since we're even discussing this, I assume that means you've accepted his presence in the mansion? Aoko was triumphantly satisfied with herself. The only thing I've accepted is my responsibility for not catching him with the bounded field in the park that night. I mean, it's not as if I can blame it all on you and your promise to him. Oh, that promise. Aoko looked up at the ceiling as she recalled the night at the amusement park. Only a week at most had passed since then, but Aoko already felt that Sojiro's fate and her own had become intrinsically linked. Or perhaps they'd always been connected by fate since the moment they'd met. She could not see into the future, so there was no way to know for sure. Destiny and fate aside, he's not a bad egg. Besides being weird, I mean. A thought uttered to herself in self-confirmation more than to Alice. Alice could only look on in annoyance, perhaps in an attempt to voice her displeasure at her comment. Do you know about his injury, Aoko? Injury? What injury? Alice raised her slender fingers to her mouth as if to push the words back in. She had blurted it out in the heat of the moment, a secret that no one else was supposed to know, but that which one couldn't keep to herself. Aoko tilted her head in confusion. I see. Alice looked relieved for some reason. Her sudden antipathy towards Aoko had dissipated as well. Ignorance is bliss, I suppose, said Alice as she took a sip of her cold tea. She made no attempt to explain who was fortunate. Or why. And her beautiful face contorted in revulsion. Yuck. She abandoned the cup to the floor once more, her black dress unceremoniously scrunched up as she stood. Just one sip of the underbrewed tea sent her fleeing to the drawing room to remove the bad taste from her mouth. As soon as she was gone, took the cup in her hands. Wondered how Sojiro's tea could arouse such a strong response. She returned it quietly to the floor after one small sip. Yep, he should have used the tea bags like I told him to. Dummy. The expression on her face was nearly identical to that of her roommates. Oh, there we go. There's our chapter. And we have a new book in the archives. So first we had, I forget what the name of this chapter was. But now this one's, Are You For Real? Exclamation point, question mark, all caps. This is bound to be shenaniganry, right? It has to be. It can't be anything else with a title like that. But anyway, let's really quickly see what else is in the archive. So now we have, so this was the last one that we did, which was Chapter 6, Chapter 7, and then we have, it's Martha. It's not even a whole set of chapters, like a chapter 1.5 or anything like that. It's just a part of Chapter 7 that we can read called Martha. I guess we'll kick off with that the next time. But yeah, I think this is a good place to end it. I would usually go forward with more, but I actually don't have that much time tonight, so we'll keep going soon. We're getting through this game, guys, at a pretty solid clip, I think. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you think I'm reading too fast too. I'm processing it, and I hope you guys are too, but I hope you guys enjoyed that. I definitely did, and I will see you guys in the next video. So for now, have a good rest of your day, and I will see you soon. Bye!